Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Laco. A little bit about them. They were actually founded back in 1925. And of course, these are made in Germany, as you guys can see. And they're known as one of the 5 original Flieger manufacturers, along with A. Lang & Söhne, Wempe, Walter Storz, now known as Stova, and IWC. Of course, back when Laco was originally known as Lasher and Company. And then, of course, it was abbreviated to Laco. So it makes sense. In terms of the type of watch, guys, pretty iconic pilot's watch here. Some key characteristics and design when you're looking for something within this genre. Of course, you're going to want to find that balance of both legibility and functionality, which is perfect for a pilot's watch, right? Ultimately, you're going to need that. You're going to need to be able to read it, and it's going to need to be able to do the job. Now, this is one of their Flieger Pro specs. So this is a custom spec that I spec'd out. And you guys, if you're fans of the channel, you know I originally spec'd out when they first released these, when they had just black dial options. Now they've rolled out the blue dial. You guys know how crazy I am about blue dials. So when this option came out, I had to reach back out to Laco and see if I could get my hands on one of these. So for those of you who know about these Flieger watches, especially within Laco's suite of various Fliegers and pilots watches. So the Pro, what kind of sets it apart, right? Is there's tons of different options. You can get it with an A dial, as you see here. You can also get it in a B dial, stainless steel case. You can get it in 37, 40, or 43. This is the 40 millimeter. You can get it brushed or dark sandblasted. You can see this is brushed. You can get it in a black or a dark blue dial as seen. Now you can even get it some new options besides the blue dial, is you can get it without that Flieger engraving on the side of the case, which we'll take a look at my black dial model to compare. Also, guys, you can source out if you want it to be mechanical or automatic. You can get it in a labouré grade as a standard, as this one is, or you can get it to the top grade level, which I actually did up spec in my personal spec one that I did before. You can get it with a display case back, solid case back. You can get decorated movement, extra decoration, or just leaving it plain the way that it is. So there's a lot of different options. Sapphire crystal, you can choose to double the anti-reflective coating, so you can pay a little extra and you can get that outer anti-reflective, which I know can be very divisive, but I will say that they did recommend it on my black dial and I appreciated it so much I had to see this spec with it here for the blue dial. And then you even have choices to take the logo on or off, add a date or no date. You can get the date with a dark disc or a light disc. So just, there's so many different options, personal engravings, but this particular unit has been configured to be about 1370. And that is, I think, definitely worth it for the price when we get into some more of these details. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand and take a closer look. Okay. So as you guys can see, black dial, just bringing it in just to show some of the particular differences. Of course, I did spec this one also on that steel bracelet, especially with the blue dial, because I think everyone's going to, of course, compare it to the Little Prince IWC on the bracelet. So I thought, why not? But hey, here's one of the big things that stand out. Now you can get it without the Flieger engraving. Also, I chose, since I didn't do anything special with the movement this time around, to get it spec'd with this very nice, if I can get this nice and focusable on the camera, check that out. Very cool, solid case back. And I know some of you guys are huge on solid case backs. Another good thing about the solid case back, although it doesn't really affect the thinness, as you guys are going to be able to see here, because this one has the display case back. I don't know, maybe ever so slightly. I don't know if it's going to be a measurable difference, but, here, of course, this one, there was something to show off, some up-spec movement and whatnot. And then, of course, having the blued screws, extra decoration. It just made sense. Now, in this case, though, I thought, hey, why not keep it just a little bit more straightforward? And the nice thing is now you guys can kind of see that if you were interested in having a unit that did have a solid case back. And another good thing about a solid case back is if you decide to say wear this on a NATO style strap. So if you have a pass-through strap, the nice thing is, yeah, you don't have to worry about covering up the movement, right? So I don't know, that's just me. I think this thing's gorgeous, guys. Check it. I mean, I still love my black dial model here. I mean, this is, and you know, for all of the same reasons, but I did want to get these side by side. I've, you know, have a pretty huge collection of various brands, but Laco is definitely one where I feel like I have a really, really nice little selection. So if you guys are interested in kind of seeing them, maybe on a follow-up video all laid out next to each other, let me know down in the comments now. But so we'll go ahead and get that off camera and we'll focus on the new blue, guys. You guys know I'm a big fan of Flieger watches. You know, I've collected quite a few from various manufacturers, even some more modern Fliegers, and some that really would get traction on my channel were the Zen 556 lines. I don't own any of those Zen 5. I don't actually own any more Zens. So, and I don't really get rid of watches, guys. So if that probably, I mean, I like them, but I just wasn't wearing them enough. And you know, the blue dial 556i, I really, really loved. And I think this really scratches a similar, if not nicer itch, for less money, honestly, because of how expensive Zen watches have gotten over the years. So I really, really like this one. Getting into the details though, a 40 millimeter diameter, 11.5 millimeters thick, including the crystal, 47.5 millimeters lug to lug, sterile case side there, so no Flieger engraving, which some of you might like, some of you might dislike. The cool thing is you can spec it whichever way you like if you were to order one of these. Also, you're getting the sapphire that's double domed, so you can see here if I get it at a harsh angle, thanks to there being a dome on the outer and underside of the crystal, means that you're going to get ultimate legibility and clarity from an optical standpoint. Also, this does have the outer AR coating, and that's, again, it's attributed to the fact that I loved it so much and it's held up so well on the black dial. I will say for the blue dial, probably don't need it as much as the black dial because the black dial is very matted. So for you to get that ultimate legibility, sometimes it is nice to have that extra layer of AR coating. Here, the inside AR coating probably would have been good enough, but I did want to see kind of how much more legible it would be with just that extra bit. And I have to say, it might not show up on camera, but in person, it's pretty wild how nice this is in terms of just almost like an invisible crystal. And it's a nice looking crystal because it's sapphire, it's nicely domed. You can see the actual shape of it actually flows really well with the bezel and the general case shape. Now, getting into the crown, screw down crown, which is fantastic. Yeah, some of you will be upset it's unsigned, but it's not undecorated. I mean, you can see here, beautiful classic styling. I love that it's inset, so it doesn't stick out too much. And since it's screwed down, I can unscrew it here. You can see there, very, very functional, function forward. And with that screw down capability is one of the things that gets you that extra confidence in inspiring water resistance at 200 atmospheres. 20 atmospheres or 200 meters. So I really, really dig that. I think that's fantastic. It definitely works for me. And again, now if I get this thing sweaty, grimy, gritty, I can just rinse it off and wipe it down and feel completely confident with that, especially with the screw down crown, which means I know that all the seals are going to be engaged because the crown is screwed in. Now, although you cannot see the movement inside it's actually what they consider the Laco 200, which is essentially a Sellita SW200-1. It's an elaborate grade. It has Inca block shock protection, a gilded nickel balance wheel, Niverox 2 hairspring. Of course, I could have upgraded some of these features if I would have went for the top grade. It's regulated to 3 positions, which is fantastic. And it has a 38-hour power reserve, beats at 4 hertz or 28,800 vibrations per hour, and is actually 0 to 14 seconds accurate, which is actually much better than it sounds, because I said 0 to 14 seconds. I didn't say plus or minus 14 seconds, right? Because when you hear that 0 to 14, you think, oh, it could be 14 seconds fast, but it will be 0 seconds slow. So that's just the way that they dialed it in. It's essentially the same timing window as plus or minus 7 seconds per day, right? Except it'll never be minus 7, which I think is awesome. Of course, I could have upgraded. I did here with the top grade, and you get a tighter tolerance. But, for me, I just thought that was cool and something that I should talk about, because a lot of the times, especially with Swiss movements, they can be quite deceiving in terms of the way that they specify their ultimate tolerances. They'll put an ultimate tolerance that's actually super wide and then say, well, with average use, you should expect this. But it's like the only one that's guaranteed is going to be the ultimate, minus whatever and plus whatever, even though, hey, average use, whatever, you can expect this. I mean, how can you actually promise what average use is? So the only thing that's actually covered within warranty spec is going to be the ultimate, plus or minus variance. So something to consider, but these run really well. Again, even in the standard grade, which is, even at standard grade, it's pretty nice, Elaborate. So it's been working for me. And again, regulated to 3 positions. Could have got it regulated to more positions, but that is up charging as well. And I wanted to keep this build pretty simple, especially at that under $1,500 price point, $1,370. Now, the hands, guys, still that beautiful, heat treated blued hands. They're not blue coated, blue colored, and it just works over that blue sunray dial. The indices are printed and they glow like a madman. I mean, C3 Swiss Superluminova, thermally blued hands, no date, and no ghost crown position either, which is cool. So even though this is an SW200-1, it actually has been modified. So again, another big kudos to Laco for doing those types of things that not everybody notices, but guess what? Those who appreciate it really do appreciate it, like myself. Also, 20 millimeter lug. So if you didn't want to have it on this gorgeous 5-link bracelet, you don't have to. I think this thing looks gorgeous on leather. It looks great on a pass-through strap military. That's the beauty of these old Flieger-style watches. They're very versatile. You can dress them up, you can dress them down, you can modernize them, you can make them look more vintage. I think that's kind of the sweet spot when it comes to these. And then again, it's from a brand that originated this actual dial layout, which you can't always get, right? So there's so many watches that are just homages. This is actually from a brand that was one of the original 5 Flieger manufacturers. And again, the company that it's in, A. Lange & Söhne, Vempe, IWC, even Stova, right? Those prices have gone up quite a bit. So there's a bit of street cred to that, as a collector and appreciating the history of watches, that's something that I think will resonate with a lot of folks. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5 inch wrist, this wears beautifully, beautifully thin, just beautifully proportioned. Look at the shape of the lugs. Everything just flows fantastically here, guys. Wraps the wrist well, as you guys can see. And of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the lens, you're going to get some perspective distortion. It's going to kind of warp it and make the dial face seem much larger, and the overall case larger than it actually is. You're going to get more dial and kind of more head, a watch head, than you are getting the actual bracelet side. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low, and then just tighten up the frame so that you guys can get still a detailed look, but just add a bit of a truer aspect ratio. So check that out, guys. Now that sits beautifully. So I think this hits a nice sweet spot. I know a lot of folks are into smaller sizes. The nice thing is you do have an option to get this in a 37. I think the 40 for me is the sweet spot. I think it hits a sweet spot for a lot of folks. And also, even though it doesn't have a very large bezel, because of the way that the dial is spaced and a way that it takes up the space, right? Check out the markings there, that outer track, how it pushes the numerals. The numerals are bigger than just indices, right? Like batons. So you have that all kind of visually pushing your eye more towards the center of the dial. So that really works in terms of making this feel very proportional. And that blue, again, isn't overly vibrant. You can see it's a sunray dial. It probably is appearing slightly more dynamic on camera, but I will say in person it renders as more of a blue, probably a bit of a truer blue. Oh, I think I got a little bit of, let's get a little of that. dust off of there, off of the crystal. Ooh. And let's talk about the bracelet while we have it on, guys. Solid bracelet, solid links and end links, fully articulated, with 2 half links available that actually are not articulated, but they are shorter, which is great. And this does have a 2mm taper down to 18mm at that signed push button butterfly style clasp. So very nice. In terms of the construction, it is pin and collar. So, I mean, it would have been nice if they were screws, but you know what? Because of how delicate this is and the thinness of the case that flows into the thinness of the bracelet, I don't mind it. And again, I actually have kind of come to appreciate pin and collars, although they are a little bit more trouble to set. The nice thing is you can literally forget them afterwards. Like, you never have to worry about damaging links. You don't have to worry about anything backing off over time, unscrewing itself, which is nice. And although, yes, screws are very easy to adjust sometimes, right? There's also some trade-offs, right? So like if you want it to be more secure, then you're going to want some level of some Loctite or something on there, but then it's harder for you to unscrew them. Then you can cross thread them if you're not screwing them in correctly. So there's a lot that can go wrong, unfortunately, with screws. And then, yeah, you end up damaging links versus just damaging the screw itself. In this case, the worst thing you can do is lose the collar. With pin and collars, it can be very tedious, but yeah, once you have it set, I mean, it's set. So I dig that. And I mean, this thing just wears gorgeous. I mean, it would have been nice. Of course, another thing I'm sure some of you were saying is, oh, it would have been great to have a toolless micro adjusting clasp. You're right. That would have been cool. I would be happy and thrilled if they developed that. But I have to say, with how short the links are, I'm able to get this dialed in. But if my wrist does get swollen, the nice thing is, because of how articulated these links are, it makes it a little bit more wearable because it's going to grip around your wrist. If your wrist is not swollen, it's going to have a nice grip. You can actually program in a little bit of extra room in there, like an extra little finger. And then if your wrist swells, the nice thing is, again, with that full articulation, it actually makes it, still quite comfortable. I haven't found myself really toying with these too much in terms of fitment. Maybe between winter and summer, I might take or add one of the half links in, but right now I don't have any of the half links in, and it just sits perfectly. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Oh, yes. Yes. This is a loom beast. And you know what? It's a pilot's watch. It doesn't really have to be. But man, am I glad that it is. This thing is just outstanding, guys. Beautifully applied. So although, yes, you are going to have a little bit of that Dayloom glow tint to it, I think it's worth it, considering how well this thing lights up, especially after you've been out in the sun and you're walking back into your house and, you have a little bit of shade over you and you see how much this thing really glows. It's great and very, very legible. One thing I always like to work in is going to be a bit of a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field, enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And I have to say, guys, this thing looks great. Look at the blue. Ooh, I love this. And you know what? It's honestly not the easiest thing to make an elevated sunray dial. A lot of the times they can just be oversaturated. They can look a bit too bright. I like when it's going to be more dynamic. There's going to be that vibrant contrast, that indigo kind of level of blue there mixed in with the deeper navy kind of tones. And then we'll even give it a little supercharge on that. Just look at, oh yes. Let's just really, really soak that in. I think that just looks so cool. And again, guys, look at the brushing. Very, very nice. Now, this isn't a luxury level watch. This is really just probably a perfectly executed tool watch. So you're not going to get a bunch of fine bevels or anything like that. because this does keep it quite minimal. And I think that is, you know, one of the things that in terms of that general kind of German aesthetic, you know, it's a business piece, right? It's down to business. Of course, there are models that are going to have all these great ornate details. Here in this case, though, guys, it's just, I think it's a beautiful balance. I think all you really need is that blue dial, and it just punches it up and makes it more versatile as a kind of a daily wear. It adds a nice bit of kind of casual flair to it. And again, if you want to dress it up, now that blue dial does make it feel decidedly, I think, more versatile in terms of dressing it up versus that matte black dial, which looks great, can still feel a bit toolish. Whereas here, I think you really get into approaching that more kind of, that recreational, fun, vibrant look, which I think is really, really great. I'll try not to ramble on too much here. Let's get the lights back on. We covered quite a bit of information. Of course, there's a lot to love about this timepiece and about the Laco brand. So I'll keep this part very short, guys. Closing thoughts. The perfect wrist size and proportions, like perfect, I should say perfect for my wrist size at 40 millimeters. But again, you have choices. You can go 43 if you want to go something a little bit more traditional. You can go 37 if you want to go something a little bit more vintage-esque and make it more of a kind of everyday, dressier type of layout. There's even before the blue dial and you know, some of the other new options that they've added, there are already over 14,000 possible variations. So you can really tailor these to suit you. And again, this is not from some upstart brand. This is from a brand that has some real heritage, which I can appreciate. Now, in terms of comparable models, guys, many options for classic Flieger style watches, but you know, really not many that offer the quote-unquote perfect combination, at least in my eyes, of history, quality, and capability, right? So the history there being an original Flieger manufacturer, a German brand, right? The quality here, this is definitely more elevated. You're not just paying for the brand history and brand lineage. This is a premium product, and it feels as such. And then capability, you're getting all of the modern nicety, screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance, stuff you don't need, super bright lume, but man, when you get it, that's awesome. And it just makes it more versatile ultimately, and makes it to where you might have a niche love for a pilot's watch, but now you can wear it in so many other situations if you like that aesthetic. So if this becomes, you know, your own personal kind of signature timepiece, the nice thing is this is going to be able to be dressed up, dressed down, it can be babied, sure, but also it can take, it can take a licking. So I think that's great. So bottom line, guys, this to me is still the all-around best Flieger you can buy. Again, it's not the cheapest. There are cheaper options, and Laco even sells some of the cheaper options, so that's great as well. But if you just kind of want the best for your money, I think it's tough to argue against this particular model, especially, again, in this pro spec form, right? So the Flieger Pro line. So with that said, let me know what you guys all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.